Okay, generator's installed. The most difficult part was the 4 engine mounting bolts. Somehow misplaced the originals, so it was 2 trips to the hardware store before I got the proper length for each, 2 of which had to be installed inverted, bolt on the bottom facing up, not on the top. The other 2 had to be right side up facing down, just based on the clearances to be able to slide the bolt in. And I pulled the generator, had to remove the bolts and prop it up to get my hand in there to bolt in the port side aft bolt. I've got the unit topped off with fluids. It's full of coolant. I don't think there's an air bleed for coolant on this unit. If there is, I have not located it, and the shop manual I accidentally left behind at the mechanics. But I think I'm good. It's a small enough engine. I overfilled it with oil. It's way above the line on the dipstick. So right now I'm going to test out the new oil drain valve and see how this works. See here, throw this valve, and some air in there. Definitely gonna have to get a hose for this guy. See, I'm gonna pull the dipstick, it'll airflow. I need to prime the fuel system. My plan is to open the valve that comes off the primary fuel filter, and then I've left the positive wire on the fuel pump, which is right here, disconnected. I'm going to turn on the key up at the helm so there's power to the system, and then I'll just touch the positive 12-volt wire to the fuel pump just until I've pushed up air past it. Once that's complete, I'll crimp and permanently connect the positive lead. And then the next step is the high pressure fuel line coming off the injector pump and up to the cylinder. I have this this nut is loose, so I will crank the engine while this nut is loose to push all the remaining air up out of this line until I have fuel spraying and leaking out of this fitting. Once fuel's coming out, I'll tighten this down. And while I'm doing all of this, the seacock for the raw water system, here's my raw water pump back here, that valve will be closed, so I won't be pushing any seawater through the system. I don't want to risk, with all the cranking, pulling water up through the muffler and through the exhaust valve into the cylinder and recreate the very issue that caused the rebuild in the first place. So once I get the system primed, tighten this nut up on the high pressure fuel line, then I'll start the engine up, make sure she runs. After a couple seconds, I'll shut it down, open up the seacock, start the engine back up, and make sure we're moving raw water through the system and it's going overboard. Let the engine run for a few minutes, let the oil heat up. I'll shut it down, and then we'll check coolant level and check oil level. And if all of that looks okay, we'll start it up again, and then I need to adjust the throttle cable, or I don't think it's called throttle on a diesel, the accelerator cable, the RPM adjustment here. I gotta move these nuts to one side or the other to get the RPM of the engine around 3600 RPM, which is what produces 120 volts of AC power. So right here is the bleed screw for the low pressure side of the fuel system. You see here as I apply power, she's spraying fuel. So I'm going to tighten that down. Okay, low pressure side is primed. Oh, right in the dirty bilge. Yay. It's the first tool in the bilge this time on this round. Damn. Alright, so here's the fuel injector. This nut is loose. Unfortunately, I got to crank the engine up at the helm. So I'm just going to wrap it. There we go.